Welcome back, Alphonse. Hope everybody's having a very tubular Tuesday. We did not have a magnificent Monday as far as trading goes. Hopefully, you did have a magnificent Monday because I totally forgot it was a holiday. But yeah, that's the way it goes. Holiday Monday. Um, what is going on with the market today? We're going to take a look at some things. Should you be nervous? That's a great question. It is. Whew, we're seeing some pretty good breakdowns out there out of some of the key stocks, and we'll take a look and see where it's kind of all coming from. SPY, a little bit of a gap down, but really it's more of the intraday price action that kind of going on today. SPY gap down roughly a third of a percent. But it's really just that first half of the day just kind of rolled over and just traded lower. Kind of trying to base here. We'll see if it has an upswing towards the end of the day. I would think we probably would, but I mean, there's no guarantees on that right now. And a lot of it has to do with the Qs. Take a look at the Qs, man. Qs are down 1.25%. The SPY was down 0.75%. And you see the Qs actually gapped down almost 0.5%. Not quite 0.5%, almost. But if you remember this red line from past couple of days, well, I'll get back to that. I want to look at the daily, but this was kind of the stop loss area, kind of the lows of last week where we bounced. So we traded right down to that level in the first hour, and that was where we got a little bit of a bounce for 30 minutes, and then we just kind of rolled back over, and we just kind of chopped around that area for about an hour, trying to bounce off the lows of the day. We'll see if we do. It'd be kind of interesting to see if we do bounce after breaking down, coming to snagging the lows of last week. So, anyways, that was kind of where, you probably want to have a stop loss, or maybe not a stop loss, but I think I kind of mentioned that is where you definitely want to have an alert set. Say, hey, notify me if we probably trade down to this level. The Qs are there, the SPY is not. We'll take a look at that on the daily. IWM gap down pretty good, down 1.5% currently. You can see this gap down was about 1.25%. And then not as much selling intraday. I mean, it's just huge gap down there on the IWM. So, kind of towards the session lows like everything else so far. The DIA, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, no gap really here, or at least it filled it there in the first 5 minutes. Choppy for the first couple of hours there, kind of rolled over there, and maybe in that second hour, I guess, down to the daily lows. But it is one of the few, at least I think the only ETF here that I track that's been positive for the day. A little bit of an upswing here over the past hour. RSP, yeah, not even positive. So the DIA is the only one that has been positive for a period of time today. But yeah, nice gap down. Basically just chopping sideways down to kind of 1/3%. So traded kind of flat on the intraday time frame. Hasn't broken the moving averages. Still above the 10 EMA, but it's not. There's only so much rotation that you can kind of do out of like really quality stocks into, other things that probably just aren't growing as fast. So, RSP is going to have a really hard time. And maybe last week's buying was a little bit overdone. Anyways, the DIA, Dow Jones Industrial Average, many people are probably going to start to make a connection that this looks like a little bit of a double top here. We'll see. Right now it's sitting right on that 10 EMA on a daily. So we'll see if it breaks down. Obviously, hugely important level is going to be last Tuesday's low, which, that's the one that accuses breaking for today. IWM had a very strong week last week, second half of the week. Oh, look at this. Look at this. Where's the circle? Look at what we got here. We got us a little bit of island reversal action right there on the IWM. Okay. And it's at it kind of topped out at kind of a pretty good resistance level around the 205 area. So yeah, kind of mentioned that was going to be a pretty important one. I thought we might go a little bit higher than what we did last Thursday, but not looking the best there. Speaking of not looking the best, all right, Qs. Woo, buddy. So we traded below last week's low. Obviously, we know we didn't bounce all that hard. Friday was much more selling on the Qs than some of the, the other 5 I got here, or the other 4 I got here. We haven't really just bounced. We didn't just come snag this low that we put in last Tuesday and bounce. We tried to, but it didn't. We kind of rolled back over, and we spent much of the past couple hours just kind of down in that level around this red line. And I would say it's a pretty good day to check this and figure out what you kind of want to do. I could understand probably saying, hey, you know what? The market's not going to do anything without the weight of the Qs. Because basically the Qs is, heavily weighed by, the Sig 6. And it's just one that there's more weight on the Qs from the Sig 6 than there is on the SPY. But this is a really good tell of what's going on with the Sig 6. And it's one where the SPY is going to have a really hard time going anywhere without the Qs. So if you're trying to be bullish, I would just say, you know what? Maybe now is the time. Maybe not to cut it all, right? Because if we take a look at the SPY hasn't gotten back down to that low of last Tuesday. So I would be willing to say, you know what? Be a little bit more protective here. Maybe not a half, maybe a quarter, maybe a third, maybe a half. It depends on your risk tolerance. And say, you know what? I'm going to start to get a little bit more protective here. Kind of breaching that level. It could just be a wick down. Maybe we just took the last Tuesday's low. That's why. And that's one reason why I say maybe not a half, maybe a quarter, maybe a third. And just be protective on it. Maybe you just buy puts on your positions, or maybe you just sell out a third or a quarter of your positions and just say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna be a little bit smart here. I'm gonna be protective. We got some pretty good gains. We're still, relatively towards the higher end of the highs that we put in over the past 2 weeks. Be smart. Because if we do see the downside and the rollover here, there's a lot of room to see some selling. So, but the SPY, not quite back down to that level of last Tuesday's low. So that just kind of tells you if the Qs do start to sell off, especially if you're heavily weighted in that area, like the SPY might not break this level, and the Qs might break it pretty good here over the next couple of days because we're gonna have NVDA earnings, so that's gonna matter a lot on the Qs. I'm not saying it's not gonna matter a lot on the SPY. It will, but it's not gonna matter as much. So be protective. Things might seem a little nervous for the market. And let's run through a couple stocks, okay? Let's run through the Sig 6, AAPL, selling off. They're down 0.9%. I kind of mentioned how it traded last week was not good at all. And here you go. We're kind of breaking these lows that we had back in January. Now, we haven't broken this February low. But, we broke those January lows again. To me, it's just a matter of time before Apple just continues to sell off. Microsoft, the way Microsoft traded the second half of last week was not good. Expecting that breakdown. There it is, a little bit of a breakdown. People are probably going to start to make a little bit of a connection of here's a little bit of a shoulder, neckline, head. Maybe a neckline there, shoulder, and here's the rollover, possibly. Or maybe we're on our way down to connect in with that neckline now. Kind of an interesting one, but we'll see. Here's Alphabet. Alphabet gap down, traded higher, up 0.4%. That's probably one of the better ones on the day. Here's a Meta. Meta, nice little gap down, 0.9%. You can see that it's actually traded at least up to positive territory really quick there on the open. So, Meta, strong earnings, still has a lot of momentum and it's performing okay. Here's Amazon rolling over here a little bit, not performing as good as Meta, even though it did have a gap up on its earnings day as well. So things aren't looking the best. And then here's NVIDIA. NVIDIA had a really hard time continuing this uptrend last week, especially the second half of the week. It just kind of flattened off. And that's a pretty good sell day today. I'm not saying that, we topped out last week. Earnings are tomorrow afternoon, Wednesday afternoon. Maybe NVIDIA comes out and continues the grind higher. But let's take a look at a stock that has absolutely defied a lot. It's called Supermicro SMCI. If you don't know about this stock, we did look at this on Friday. It was down around the mid 800s. It eventually closed down 20% on the day. But this thing's been on an absolute tear. Even just for this year, it was sub 300. It got up to almost 1100 on Friday, and you can see it's down still 7.5% today. That's it, and that's with throwing a pretty good lower wick there. So it's bounced off the lows pretty good. But this might have been an early tell of what was to come, maybe this week. Super micro, a lot of people saying, yeah, screw that. We're going to lock in gains. So they did that on Friday. Everybody was kind of talking about this on Friday and over the weekend. A lot of people, well, I'm not going to say everybody, but a lot of people were referencing SMCI. So it makes sense that people are like, yeah, screw that. You know what? I don't want that to happen to my stock, my gains, and therefore you go back to NVIDIA. That's why you get the sell off. Does that continue through earnings? It's possible. I mean, NVIDIA, if they don't continue higher, if things come in a little bit lighter than what people have been expecting or what they've led investors to believe, yeah, I mean, we'll see sell-offs across everything on Thursday. So, we'll see how it goes. But continuing on, the VIX, nice little higher push there on the VIX. All right, starting to now ascend. It's we had a nice little pop there last week, pulled back to moving averages, didn't come all the way back down to what was like this previous kind of like trend line higher. You can see that we actually set in like a new kind of trend line here. So, yeah, kind of an interesting one because if we are on an upswing on the VIX, what is that going to mean for stocks and equities? That will be a good question to have answered here over the next couple of days. DXY. Okay, so DXY had a strong pop last week and kind of faded it throughout the week. And continued to fade it all the way into today. I mean, I wouldn't have seen. I didn't think we'd see this happen, but honestly, it still could just be consolidating. It did come take these, these lows from pre CPI reading last week. It did come take those lows on a wick today. It is bouncing kind of nice intraday. You can see it traded down until the equity market opened, and then has been rising steadily throughout the day with the equity market open. So we'll see what this looks like tomorrow. That would be what I would say. We are also going to get some information tomorrow, FOMC minutes, and then throughout the rest of the week, not much. But FOMC minutes will be the big one tomorrow. Maybe that moves the dollar. It doesn't typically. Normally it doesn't. Mostly because we know everything that they kind of discuss at the FOMC meetings. But yeah, it is what it is. Anyways, dollar down a little bit. So gold doing good. Kind of keep mentioning this. Just be a buyer on dips. Just be a buyer on dips. I wouldn't be leveraged. I mean, don't be leveraged, but just continue to be a buyer on dips. 10-year yield. 10-year yield. Looks like it's still kind of consolidating. Maybe we push higher here over the next couple days. We'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, we got a nice little, what looks like pivot pattern kind of setting up here. All right, 10-2 inversion, starting to turn back higher. Okay, this lower wick, kind of mentioned this, could be a pivot. Maybe we start to go the other direction. So it looks like maybe we're going to go the other direction. Maybe we'll go higher on the 10-2 inversion. HYG pushing a little bit higher, still kind of consolidating in kind of this range here. We do have what was somewhat of a lower highs coming in. We'll see if we don't continue to push higher here over the next couple of days. If we do, not really much changes. We still just might be consolidating sideways. And we'll see what happens. LQD, same kind of deal. Maybe we just push higher. Maybe we retest into some of these lows that we had back at the beginning of the year. Other than that, not too much going on there. TLT, trying to base here after it broke down the base that it put in back in January. So maybe it bases here in February, push higher. I have to wait and see on some of these yields. But the other thing I'd say is, just going back and looking at the yield. I mean, even though it's down today, it doesn't look like it's wanting to break down yet. If it gets below that 10 EMA and then back below this 4.2 level, maybe we're talking about yields going lower. But as for now, I think you're probably looking for yields to go higher. Probably looking to be bearish on bonds at some decent levels. All right, let's take a look at sector performance. All right, taking a look here at sector performance. So we got tech lagging behind. Makes perfect sense. Discretionary is also lagging behind. That does make sense. All right, energy is kind of in line with the market there. You got communications, XLC actually outperforming on the day. A lot of that, I mean, Alphabet, Meta, maybe helping out. You got industrials, real estate, healthcare, financials, materials, all kind of outperforming, kind of at the same level there. Then you got utilities outperforming, actually positive on the day. Utilities and staples, the best performer on the day. Staples, all right. So intraday, how do things look? Tech, obviously, has seen a lot of selling throughout the day. Discretionaries also in that same boat, not as bad. XLC and so communications, healthcare, energies, all kind of in line with the market right there. Energies, industrials, materials, outperforming there. That kind of the high end on the intraday. Utilities, real estate, utilities, real estate, staples, and financials. So that's kind of how the sectors are performing today.